Legend is the word, the great Michael Jordan. So they claim that NASCAR abuses its power in monopolistic ways as the premier racing organization in the U.S. NASCAR says it has done nothing wrong.
Things just got crazy in the NASCAR courtroom. The judge actually yelled at NASCAR's lawyers for breaking the rules, and he's threatening serious consequences if it happens again. Let me break down what's happening. Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's race team, called 23XI Racing, is suing NASCAR. They're joined by another team called Front Row Motorsports. These two teams say NASCAR is running the sport like a bully and not treating them fairly. The trial started on December 1st in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's supposed to last 2 weeks. Now here's the big news. On day 3 of the trial, Judge Kenneth Bell completely lost it with NASCAR's lawyers. He caught them red-handed doing things they weren't supposed to do in court. And when I say he was mad, I mean he was really mad. So what did NASCAR do wrong? Well, there were 2 big problems. First, they asked Bob Jenkins questions about his other businesses. Jenkins owns Front Row Motorsports, and he also owns some fast food restaurants. But here's the thing. Before the trial, both sides agreed they wouldn't talk about his other businesses. NASCAR's lawyers broke that promise. The second problem was even worse. NASCAR's lawyers started talking about a text message from a guy named Jeff Dickerson. But Dickerson isn't even a witness in the trial. The judge said you can't bring up messages from people who aren't there to explain them. That's just not fair. Judge Bell was so angry that he told NASCAR's lawyers, these will not be tolerated. The next time it happens, from either party, there will be significant consequences. That's judge talk for, do this again and you're in big trouble. This isn't the first time either. The judge had already warned NASCAR on day 2 about asking Jenkins about his money from other businesses. But they went ahead and did it again anyway. When someone breaks the rules twice, that's when judges really get upset. The whole trial is getting intense. Just the day before the judge's big warning, Denny Hamlin did something his own lawyers told him not to do. He posted on social media saying, "My lawyers don't want me to tweet, or X, or whatever this is, but they are asleep. I just wanted to tell you that I love you guys, and I will not stop fighting for you and what is right." His fans loved it. One person wrote, "You might not have won the Cup championship, but you got the People's Championship DH." Another fan said, "Do not settle. Take it the distance." So what's this whole trial about anyway? It all comes down to something called charters. Think of charters like special tickets that guarantee your race car gets into every race. NASCAR created these back in 2016. The problem is, NASCAR wanted all the teams to sign a new deal for these charters in 2024, and most teams thought it was a really bad deal. Here's where it gets interesting. On September 6, 2024, NASCAR sent out the new charter agreement at 6 in the evening. They told teams they had until midnight to sign it. That's only 6 hours to read and decide on a 112-page legal document. Bob Jenkins testified that he was out to dinner with his parents when it happened. He said no attorney on the East Coast was available to read a 112-page document in that short time. Jenkins said NASCAR knew he had to blindly sign it. Some of these owners have $500 to $600 million facilities, long-term sponsors. They couldn't walk away from that. He was honestly very hurt by the whole thing. When Jenkins finally got his phone working that night, it was blowing up with missed calls and texts. He talked to other team owners, and guess what? Not a single one was happy about signing. He said Joe Gibbs felt like he had to sign it, and Joe Gibbs felt like he let me down by signing. Not a single owner said I was happy to sign it. Not a single one. But here's the crazy part. Even though Jenkins asked for more time and got it, NASCAR told him the deal was final. Steve Phelps, who's NASCAR's commissioner, told Jenkins, "Negotiations are concluded. We are not reopening the document." Jenkins said it felt like taxation without representation. Now let's talk about money, because that's a huge part of this case. Denny Hamlin got on the stand on day 1 and actually started crying. He was talking about his dad, who's really sick. Hamlin explained how his working-class parents spent almost all their money to help him race when he was young. Hamlin told the jury something shocking. He said it cost $20 million just to bring one race car to the track for all 38 races in a season. And that doesn't even include paying the driver or other business costs. But NASCAR only pays teams $12.5 million through the charter. That means teams have to find millions and millions of dollars in sponsorship money just to break even. Hamlin explained, The difficult part is coming up with tens and tens of millions just to break even. Your costs aren't covered to put on NASCAR's show. He said team owners are basically just professional fundraisers at this point. The only reason Hamlin's team makes any money is because of Michael Jordan. Jordan's so famous that big companies want to sponsor the team. Hamlin admitted they had to raise $45 million in sponsorship just to make a tiny profit. And even then, he said, all it takes is one sponsor to go away, and all our profit is gone. Bob Jenkins has it even worse. He testified that in 22 years of owning a race team, he has never made a profit. Not once. He's lost about $100 million. Think about that. You love racing so much that you're willing to lose $100 million doing it. Before NASCAR brought in the next-gen car, Jenkins spent about $1.8 million a year on parts. Now he spends $4.7 million a year. Even if his cars don't crash, it still costs $30,000 per car every single week just for required parts. Jenkins said, "It's offensive to say I've overspent. We have a model that works for us. I have never turned a profit, and it's not from malpractice. The level we compete at is just so expensive." During the trial, some really interesting text messages came out. These were private messages between NASCAR executives that nobody was supposed to see. In one message from May 2024, NASCAR President Steve Phelps looked at what they were offering teams and said, "0 wins for the teams." Another executive, Steve O'Donnell, said the deal would make NASCAR a dictatorship, redneck, southern tiny sport. Even Scott Prime, who's a top NASCAR executive, sent a message saying, "The approach of here is a bit more money, fuck off everywhere else is a bold strategy." These messages show that even people inside NASCAR thought the deal was bad for teams. But NASCAR's boss, Jim France, pushed it through anyway. When Hamlin met with Jim France to talk about the problem, France told him teams spend too much money. France said it should only cost $10 million to run a car, not $20 million. Hamlin tried to explain they'd already cut costs as much as possible. He said, "We've cut this grass so short, we're down to the dirt." When Hamlin asked France how he could get his investment back, he had no answer. Hamlin called the charter agreement essentially my death certificate for the future. He believed if he signed it, his team wouldn't survive 10 years. NASCAR's lawyers tried to fight back during the trial. They pointed out that 23XE Racing has actually made money. The team made $2.5 million in 2022 and $3.4 million in 2023. They also noted that Hamlin bought a third charter for $28 million, which seems weird if charters are such a bad deal. But Hamlin explained that those profits were tiny and could disappear with one lost sponsor. Plus, a lot of the profit came from things like charging his own team rent for their building. Judge Bell has made it clear this trial is serious business. If the teams win, NASCAR could be forced to completely change how it operates. The judge has the power to make NASCAR sell its racetracks, change the whole charter system, or even force the France family to sell NASCAR itself. NASCAR just had its worst week ever, and the leaked text messages are so bad that even the most loyal fans are questioning everything about the sport. What came out is going to change NASCAR forever. So here's what happened. There's this big court case between NASCAR and 2 race teams, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. The teams are saying NASCAR acts like a monopoly and treats them unfairly. But last Friday, the court released a bunch of private text messages and emails from NASCAR's top bosses. And let me tell you, what's in those messages is absolutely shocking. The biggest problem is what NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps said about Richard Childress. Now, Richard Childress is a legend in NASCAR. He's a Hall of Famer who owned Dale Earnhardt's race team and won 6 Cup championships. He's been in this sport forever, but Steve Phelps called him a stupid redneck who owes his entire fortune to NASCAR. He also said Childress needs to be taken out back and flogged. That means beaten with a stick or whip. Phelps called him an idiot, a dinosaur, and a total clown. These weren't just random thoughts either. This came after Richard Childress went on the radio in August 2023 and talked about how the new race cars are way too expensive. Childress said the teams are spending more money than ever, and he questioned who's really going to benefit from NASCAR's new media deal worth billions of dollars. When NASCAR executives saw this, they went crazy. Richard Childress Racing put out a statement saying they're deeply disappointed and considering legal action. They said these comments show how NASCAR executives have always treated team owners who devoted their lives to the sport. And here's the thing. NASCAR admitted that Steve Phelps called Childress a few weeks ago to tell him about these texts and say he didn't really mean it. But the damage is done. You can't say those things about someone and then just apologize when you get caught. But it gets even worse. NASCAR's top guys were also scared of a racing series called SRX. This was Tony Stewart's series that ran short track races for just 2 years from 2021 to 2023. It was small, only about 6 races each summer, but NASCAR was absolutely terrified of it. When Denny Hamlin said he was going to race in SRX in 2023, Steve O'Donnell texted Steve Phelps saying, "This is NASCAR. Pure and simple. Enough. We need legal to take a shot at this." And Phelps responded, "These guys are just plain stupid. Need to put a knife in this trash series." Think about that. NASCAR's president wanted to kill a small racing series just because some of their drivers wanted to race there on their days off. They felt threatened by 6 races a year on Thursday nights. One text even admitted that SRX was getting better TV ratings than NASCAR's Xfinity and Truck Series. The funny part is that NASCAR being scared of SRX actually helped fans. Because NASCAR was worried that SRX would work with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and go to tracks like North Wilkesboro and Bowman Gray first, NASCAR rushed to bring racing back to those historic tracks. So even though SRX only lasted 2 years, it forced NASCAR to do something good for the fans. Now let's talk about the internal problems at 23XI Racing. This is Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan's race team. And it turns out that 2 executives at the team were talking badly about Denny Hamlin behind his back for months or maybe years. Eugene Mason called Denny Hamlin a child in emails. The messages showed that Denny felt like nobody at his own team respected his opinion. Instead of talking to him like adults, these executives were mocking him when he wasn't around. And the worst part is that Denny only found out about this because the emails became public during the lawsuit. The big fight was about money. Curtis Polk complained that Denny likes to throw money at everything without being smart about it. But Denny wasn't trying to waste money. He wanted to invest in making the team better, buying better equipment, hiring better people, building a championship team. That's how you win races. But Polk thought they needed to spend less and be more conservative. Here's the problem. In racing, there's always tension between different departments. The crew chief blames the driver blames the car, everyone argues about what's wrong. That's normal, but when your own executives are calling you a child behind your back, that's not normal. That destroys trust, and without trust, you can't build a winning team. Then another bombshell dropped. An email from Michael Jordan's chief financial officer got leaked too. This was written in March 2024. The CFO started by praising Denny, saying, "Denny is a great driver, one of the best of all time. He is completely driven for 23XI to succeed." But then it got harsh. The CFO said Denny is a terrible businessman who thinks spending more money will automatically lead to wins. The email said, "He does not know as much as he thinks he does about race strategy and the other nuts and bolts of racing. He relies on regurgitating what Chris Gabehart says as if it were gospel." Chris Gabehart is Denny's crew chief. The CFO also said Denny ascribes to the dumb theory that if we spend more money, it will translate into wins and speed. This shows that the money people at 23XI think very differently than Denny does about how to run the team. Now imagine being Denny Hamlin right now. You're trying to fight NASCAR in court over unfair treatment. You're trying to run a competitive race team. And you just found out through public court documents that your own people think you're a child who doesn't know what he's doing. How do you walk into a meeting with these people? How do you trust them with anything? Kenny Wallace, who's been around NASCAR forever, gave his honest take on all this. He said everyone in NASCAR talks trash about each other behind closed doors. He described how drivers would sit in their buses with tinted windows and make fun of everyone outside, thinking they were the best and everyone else was stupid.
Everybody's assholes. Everybody. Everybody's, I'm better than you, you're dumb, I'm the greatest.
But Kenny also reminded everyone of an important lesson from Dale Earnhardt. The Intimidator used to say, "Just because you're a NASCAR driver does not mean you're any better than anybody." Dale Earnhardt started racing on small local tracks and always respected grassroots racers. That respect is completely missing from these leaked messages. The fans are absolutely furious. Some think NASCAR will survive this because NASCAR always survives. They believe the France family might even sell NASCAR to a big media company like Fox to get out of this mess. Other fans think the sport is done unless leadership completely changes. But everyone agrees on one thing: the current leadership has to go. One fan wrote, NASCAR has governed with a heavy hand for decades. The our way or the highway approach doesn't fly anymore. NASCAR should have settled this case long ago, but arrogance got in the way. The trial starts December 1st. Judge Kenneth Bell already ruled that NASCAR does have monopoly power over premier stock car racing, which is a huge win for the teams. Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske, the two most powerful team owners in NASCAR, are being forced to give depositions even though they don't want to take sides. NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps tried to calm things down, saying he's trying his hardest to settle this before trial. But the leaked texts have already destroyed NASCAR's reputation. When your own president is calling legendary team owners stupid rednecks and threatening to destroy competitor series, fans lose faith. So what does Denny Hamlin do now? Does he fire Curtis Polk and Eugene Mason? Can he ever trust them again after learning they called him a child? The internal problems at 23XI might be just as big as the legal battle with NASCAR.
All of that pent-up frustration, animosity, has finally spilled out into the public. NASCAR and 2311 Front Row clashed.
A federal courtroom in Charlotte just became ground zero for the biggest fight in NASCAR history. On August 29, 2025, damaging leaked messages and a billionaire team owner's declaration of war turned a routine hearing into a spectacle that could destroy the sport as we know it. This isn't just about racing contracts, it's about power, control, and whether NASCAR can survive what's coming next. At the center of the storm is something called a charter. In NASCAR, a charter gives a team guaranteed entry into races and a larger cut of the prize money. Without one, teams have to qualify every week just to participate. It's like trying to defend your championship title, but not knowing if you'll even be allowed on the court. That's the reality 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports are facing. Earlier this year, both teams refused to sign NASCAR's new charter agreement, calling the terms unfair and restrictive. As a result, NASCAR stripped them of their charters, leaving their future hanging in the balance. The financial implications are staggering. Teams with charters receive a guaranteed portion of NASCAR's television revenue, which totals over $800 million annually from deals with Fox, NBC, and Amazon Prime. Without charters, teams lose access to this revenue stream and must rely entirely on sponsorship deals and prize money, a model that's proven unsustainable for most operations in modern NASCAR. Rather than quietly accept it, they fought back, with a federal antitrust lawsuit accusing NASCAR of monopolistic behavior and controlling the sport like a dictatorship. The case is scheduled to go to trial in December, but recent courtroom drama has already taken things to a new level. During a hearing in Charlotte, the court made public a treasure trove of internal emails and text messages from both sides. What they revealed was shocking. In one exchange, Michael Jordan lashed out after learning that Joe Gibbs Racing had signed the new charter deal. "Fakirs," he wrote, before adding, "Teams are going to regret not supporting us. PIs." In another, Jordan joked about spending money on a new driver by saying, "I've lost that in a casino. Let's do it." His co-owner and business manager Curtis Polk replied, "This is just a hobby," to which Jordan responded, "Only can play, but so much golf." The messages also revealed the timeline of Jordan's frustration. After NASCAR announced the new charter terms in early 2024, internal communications show 23XI executives scrambling to build a coalition of teams willing to reject the deal. They reached out to Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Team Penske, hoping the sport's most successful organizations would stand together. Instead, one by one, each powerhouse team quietly signed, leaving 23XY and Front Row isolated. But the 23XI camp wasn't the only side throwing verbal punches. In one particularly chilling message, Steve Loletta, president of 23XY, wrote that Jim France dying is probably the answer to getting fair charter terms, referring to NASCAR's CEO and a member of the France family that has owned the sport since its inception. Meanwhile, Denny Hamlin, Jordan's co-owner and driver, admitted in another message that his despise for the France family runs deep. The texts from NASCAR officials were equally explosive. President Steve O'Donnell described an earlier version of the charter agreement as one that would return the sport to its tiny southern roots, calling it dictatorship, motorsport, redneck, tiny sport. He wasn't praising it, he was venting his frustration. Commissioner Steve Phelps added that teams were being offered 0 wins in negotiations and that their only choice was to sign it or lose their charters. Behind the scenes, NASCAR executives were strategizing hard, discussing how to shut down any attempt by teams to launch a rival racing series.